Hi, Daniel here from Learning on Demand English, and today I'm going to answer a question that I got from a student a couple weeks ago. His name is Lohith, he's from India. So, hi Lohith, this video is for you, but also for anybody who is taking IELTS or considering taking IELTS or any kind of writing exam for language. So, his question was all about the exam that he took a little while back, and he said that he got a question all about long distance flights and the fuel which they consume and whether we should discourage non essential flights or whether we should limit the use of cars. And so he said that this was to what extent you should agree or disagree. And to answer this question, I'm going to talk a little bit about agree disagree formatting before I get to his specific question. So, whenever an essay asks to what extent do you agree or disagree, really the best approach is to consider both, is to talk about other people's viewpoints about both agreement and disagreement. It doesn't really matter what the topic is. Probably the way that the writing exam is set up, that you will be able to find somebody who agrees and somebody who disagrees, whether it's someone who's rich or poor, male or female, old or young, the government, people in big cities or the countryside. It doesn't really matter. The examiner is not really interested in the argument. They're interested in the language that is created around the argument and the ability to deliver the argument effectively. So when Lohith brought this to my attention, the first thing I looked at is he producing effective arguments in favor of this, or is he producing any arguments against this? Here's what he said. He said that he supported one body paragraph by saying that employment opportunities will decline if they ban air travel. Now, what does he mean by that? I think what he's trying to say, according to his language, is that if air travel is reduced or limited or even prohibited, that the jobs associated with the airline industry, pilots, air stewards and stewardesses, people who work in the airports, their jobs will be at risk. And I think we've seen this year that's pretty obviously true, that if less people are flying, if there are less flights available, there's less money in the airline industry. It's a fair point, but it doesn't really answer the question, because the question is all about pollution. So if we wanted to focus purely on the question itself, we would say, yeah, if we have less flights, we'll have less pollution from those flights because flights cause pollution. So yeah, obviously we should consider reducing the amount of flights because most flights run on high pollution types of fuel. Not that you need to know that to answer this question, but yeah, I get it. I get where he's coming from. He's stating that definitely getting rid of flights is better than getting rid of cars, because if you think about it that way. But to answer the way he's done is kind of confusing. He's not really agreeing with the point. He's actually disagreeing without realizing it. Then he says that it has its disadvantages by creating pollution, which leads to increasing global warming. Well, is this an advantage-disadvantage essay, or is it an agree-disagree essay? It's an agree-disagree essay. So he's missed the point here, incredibly. And unfortunately, he hasn't here addressed why the opposite of his first point should be true. The question tells me that planes or cars should be reduced. That's the kind of statement in the opening question. It's underneath, it's in the topic. Feel free to have a look. So in the second paragraph, it should be all about cars. Why should cars be limited? Well, I can think of an obvious one. There is an obvious link between the amount of people who get on a plane and the amount of people who get in a car. A car at its very biggest can probably fit 7 people, and a plane can fit a whole lot more. So if we think purely in terms of a mathematical calculation of the amount of people who are traveling inside the vehicle, whether it be car or plane, the logical answer is that cars take way less people proportionally for the amount of energy they are consuming. That is why many cities like London and Moscow in Russia, many others around the world, have introduced something called a congestion charge. They've introduced that to limit the amount of cars that are traveling into big cities. And they're doing that partly to make more money, but partly to reduce the non essential journeys or journeys that could be taken via another means of transport. There are plenty of public transportation options, like buses and trains, the underground, or metro, or tube, or subway, depending on where you are in the world. And so Lohith's second paragraph here misses the point. It does not directly counteract the first main body paragraph. I wish it did for his sake, but unfortunately it doesn't. And this is something that a lot of candidates fall into the trap of doing. They find the first main body paragraph able to write it and they manifest it, and there are plenty of other examples that I have helped students to look at, and I've kind of talked through them. If you have any concerns like this yourself, feel free to get in touch with me. I've included my contact details below this email if you want to get in touch with me directly. But the biggest thing that kind of to take away from this is an agree-disagree essay is purely about the statement at the top. And main body 1 should be all about the agreement with that. Why is that statement correct? The second main body paragraph should be all about disagreement. Why is that statement wrong? What is wrong with that statement? And then in the conclusion, and not before, introduce the personal opinion. Introduce the viewpoint that you as an individual have, as well as a potential future prediction. Again, for any advice on this, feel free to get in touch directly. I'll be trying to do one of these every week for the next few weeks. I kind of break down a student questions and looking at these in a bit more detail. But if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, anything that you want to know in more detail, get in touch with me directly. I'm always happy to hear questions and be able to try and answer them. But yeah, in general, with writing, it is something that takes time, it takes practice, and I'm happy to help guide you along the way. So get in touch, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.